Get ready for fireworks, folks. It could be shocking. We have an interest rate battle coming up this week. We're going to talk about what that means and how to get ready for it. We've got a lot of housing news to get into today. Also, a shocking and not so surprising, if you've been watching this channel, but not so surprising surge in food bank demand. I thought everything was getting better. I thought the economy was on solid ground. Why is there a surge in food bank demand? It doesn't make any sense. We're going to get to the bottom of it right here. Please make sure you're subscribed, and let's go ahead and get into it right here. We've got the current administration out there calling for lower interest rates. However, we have the Fed out there saying that, wait a minute, inflation is not under control. We maybe need to keep rates steady, and we're going to see what happens this week. But I am guessing that the central bankers, the monetary engineers, economic engineers are going to keep rates unchanged. The Fed is certainly likely to keep its key interest rate unchanged in its policy meeting this week, just a few days after the administration came out and said they are demanding lower rates. So we're going to see, I'm sure, some interesting back and forth on this. We'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, they would have to be insane, I think, to cut rates now with the price of everything still high. Look at what just happened to the price of eggs just in the past month or so, with close to $9 eggs being kind of the average here in California. And it's only going to get worse with everything we're seeing with the farms and the breakouts of all the stuff going on there. So most of you know what's going on with that. Moving on here, I've talked about this before. I've talked about my local food banks here in San Diego. Exploding demand, folks, exploding demand. Working Americans turn to food banks as inflation battle drags on. This is how the Dallas Morning News put it out there. This is a new era of food insecurity, a Feeding America researcher says. So all these people that were so optimistic and so upbeat on the new administration, they're going to fix everything. Well, we're likely going to see food prices go a lot higher because a lot of the workers that pick this food may be exiting stage left. And what's that going to do for food prices? Well, these farms are probably going to see a lot of food. There's already reports that food is rotting, that food is not getting picked, it's not being shipped and transported because the workers are hiding maybe. We'll have to see how it plays out, folks, but it's not looking so good for food prices. At the same time as these food banks are seeing record demand. A story in here about a big box retailer worker. She probably works at like a Costco or something, saying they can't keep up with the cost because prices of groceries and everything else are up over 25% just in the past few years. Food banks across the nation are seeing a similar story. A wave of demand for food driven by working people caught in America's cost of living crunch. What did I say right here was going to happen? It's a cost of living crunch. Prices are not coming down. They're trying to convince everybody that a slowdown in inflation is a good thing. Well, it's not a good thing. Deflation is what we need. We need a lower cost of living. A slowdown in inflation just means prices are going up, just not as fast as before. Most of you know this. Beating a dead horse here, probably talking about this so much, but this is what is happening in America. And this is what most of Americans actually are feeling the crunch right now. A new era of food insecurity. If prices have risen, so are the share of Americans reporting they don't have enough to eat. So the number of people reporting they're food insecure or having cost crunch, it's increasing. It's getting worse, along with the cost of living continues to increase and get worse. That's why a slowdown in inflation, it's a meaningless, right? We need deflation, right? We all know they can't let deflation happen because then the whole economy comes down when you see deflation. And could we see a big stock market sell-off here pretty soon with everything going on? Well, look at what happened with Nvidia. I warned people here about Nvidia. Let's go ahead and bring this up here. Nvidia on Monday suffered its biggest market rout in history because of some AI competition coming out of China, some heavy competition coming out of China. Chinese startup DeepSeek entry into the AI market more than Nvidia. The chipmaker stock had plunged 16% because of the new competition coming out. And what they're saying, it's open source, it's going to be free, it's going to be a big thorn in the side, basically, to say the least, for Nvidia. But folks, you didn't need this news to come out today to know that Nvidia was way overbought. We talked about this a few months ago. I actually had a put option out on it and took a gain. It actually jumped even higher after I closed out my put option here. First, let's look at a 1-year chart here. Bring this up on a big screen for you. And look at the sell-off just in one day here. From about 148 down to about 118. That's over a, let's see here, 1-day chart shows us the percentage drop. I believe it was about 16%. Yeah, almost 17% in one day. Pretty terrible, but look at this chart, folks. From 2020, this thing was $6, folks. This is due for a much bigger pullback than just the 16, 17%. Look at this chart. This looks like the ultimate bubble stock, if you ask me. I could be wrong. I'm not telling anyone to go out and short this or do a put option against it. I got in and got out in just about a week or two and made a nice gain after it went up a lot. You guys remember that? So be careful doing this stuff, folks, because anything could happen. They could click a mouse and pour trillions of dollars back into the stock. But I think there's a lot of already mouse clicking that's taken place, if you know what I mean, with the market manipulators. And this one looks ripe for a big pullback, and they could use this AI threat out of China to bring this cat down big time. We'll have to see how that plays out. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here, folks. Legoland Florida is laying off. We talk sometimes here about how we still see people out spending a lot of money on entertainment, on travel, on amusement parks, baseball games, sports events, stuff like that. Legoland Florida reduces entertainment department with over 200 layoffs. So if everybody had so much money, why is Legoland doing this? Right, there's got to be a reason. Legoland, and this is the one in Florida. We actually do have one here in California that I went to a couple times when my kids were younger. Pretty nice park. It's pretty interesting how a whole theme park evolved out of a toy. Hundreds of Legoland Florida employees are out of a job as the theme park makes operational changes. Mass layoffs are underway. This sounds like there's going to be a lot more. This current announcement, 234 employees being given the pink slip. The entertainment department, I can't talk today. Entertainment department makes up about 75% of these layoffs, and none are represented by unions. Quote, I'm concerned, of course, because these people have worked with us for years and years. Most of them grew up in our Theater Winter Haven Academy and often volunteer at our theater. So we're seeing a lot more entertainment-related layoffs here. We see a lot of the media companies laying people off, a lot of media and entertainment type of things. So we'll have to see if this continues. I really do think it's going to continue as people get more cash crunch. It may not seem like it when you look at the people out shopping, people buying cars, basically most people getting loans for things, swiping credit cards, going further into debt to continue this consumption. It's basically what we're seeing from most people. Not all people. Some people have the money saved up. They're out spending cash. But it's becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the people that are able to just go pay cash for everything and not rely on debt. And the people that are relying on debt, for the most part, the debt is getting higher. We recently reported that a record number of people are only making the minimum payment on their credit cards. Folks, a record number, worse than the financial crisis and worse than every other financial crisis before that. I mean, this is the worst of all time. You just don't really notice it because the banks are still letting it happen. And we know what's going on with the banks and why this is happening, folks. That's the key driver to this whole economic growth illusion, right? So let's go into housing. Of course, real estate, another one of the backbones of the economy. Many would argue the backbone of the economy. I think it's mostly the banks because even the banks have to be loaning for real estate to continue to go up. And we know what's happening with the non-bank lenders, with the government agency coming in, buying most of the mortgages now from these non-bank lenders. So that's what's keeping the housing market propped up. And without that, folks, this would have imploded. Home prices would have dropped big time. But let's take a look at a recent report here. Inventory of newly completed single-family homes just spiked. And now it's the highest level in many, many years, close to 20 years. And Wolf Street had a nice write-up on this here. And a pretty nice chart here. Let's go ahead and bring this one up here. And look to the edge, the right edge here. We see a big spike here. Got to go back to about 2009, 2010. before we see this. And of course, back then it spiked up even higher, but will it continue to spike with the super low volume in real estate right now, with people just being priced out of it? And many people, they can get a loan, their banks are lending, but they're just afraid to take on these payments, because it's great to get a loan, you might get qualified, but if you can only stay in the home for a few months because you can't make the payments, then that's a whole nother ballgame, folks. So we'll see how this plays out with the real estate market. And these are just new homes. That's just, I believe, about 10 to 15% of all homes on the market right now. Mostly it's, previously owned homes. Bring on the supply of new homes. Unsold inventory for sale. Completed new single-family homes has spiked about 50%, by nearly 50% year over year, to 124,000 houses in December, the highest since June 2009, according to the Census Bureau, folks. Another area where prices really need to come down to make any sort of sense. And you can continue to look at how much money people can borrow to keep home prices elevated here. How long can this continue? How long will the banks continue to loan out money? Or will big investors just come in and continue to buy homes and keep prices inflated, right? If we don't see a rug pull somewhere, if we don't see the investors step out of the game or get some sort of restrictions put on them to stop them from buying so many homes, if we don't see some restrictions put on the banks, we're not going to see this bubble pop, folks. And the current administration, they're talking about lower rates, deregulation, making it easier for banks to loan out money, aka for people to borrow money. And this is just going to keep the bubbles inflated, folks. I mean, how many people are actually fooled thinking that this is going to be a good economy just because they're keeping the bubbles inflated? Well, look at the food banks, look at the record number of people making the minimum credit card payment, folks. There was just a report, last 1 or 2 reports ago we talked about here. And most of us had to laugh at this here. The USA Today put out, "The economy is strong. Why are more Americans barely making credit card payments?" Because the strong economy was made to look strong by all these people buying stuff they couldn't afford using credit cards. So the headline is just crazy. The economy is strong. Why are more Americans barely making their credit card payments? Because the accumulation of all this debt made it look like the economy was strong. It made it look like the economy was growing. But really, it's a debt-fueled economic boom is what you could call it. But many would say it's a bust, right? A boom that they report on, that the news says is an economic boom, is actually a bust for consumers, because for a boom to happen, consumers have to take on a whole bunch of debt. So it's a boom over here, but it's a bust over there when you look at about 70% of Americans right now, folks. So hope you're on the right side of it. If not, don't worry about it. We're going to get through it together. Please make sure you subscribe. Stay on top of the economic financial news. We're going to get through this. I've got some investments here that I'm really looking at here. Taking a wait-and-see approach right now, but ready to pounce when the correction happens. And I think we're getting closer to that day, folks. We're going to see what happens with interest rates. The battle could be a war of words or more. We'll see how it plays out, folks. As always, keep stacking. And let me know what you think about this down in the comments. The home inventory surging, the surge in food bank demand. If the economy is strong, why are we seeing that? And also, why are a record number of Americans making minimum credit card payments? Doesn't add up, folks. It doesn't add up to be the economy that we're told that we're living through right now. Anyways, keep stacking as always. Bye for now. Big love, Pete.